consultation, and so much more. All practitioners offer something unique to help you. You can pre-book practitioners before going to the event and even possibly win a gift basket by visiting 5 or more practitioners at the fair. Also, if you pre-book and prepay for a 30-minute session, you get a weekend pass for Maria's classes for free, normally a $59 value. And the first 25 people who show up Saturday and Sunday will get a free gift bag. Charvinity Psychic and Healing Fair is May 18th and 19th at the Doubletree by Hilton, Minneapolis Airport, 9 to 5 both days. It's only $10 to get in. Visit charvinityfairs.com for all the details.
Did you know that spiritual awakening is not all love and light? Surprise! Inner demons, ego deaths, and tower moments are on the horizon. But while life might hand you some harsh lessons, we've got the antidote to soothe your weary soul. Why not try a dragon's blood bath? Or schedule a Reiki aura repair? With books, herbs, talismans, candles, and more, we put the Shazam in shadow work. Visit Magus Books at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis or magusbooks.com.
Have you ever met someone who not only can help you on a deep spiritual level, but also potentially change your life? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who travels the nation and lives right here in the Midwest. And she offers mediumship, mentorship, house and business parties, energy healing, palm readings, and so much more. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
Hi, this is Psychic Medium Deb. I cannot wait to hear from you. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us. Share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story. This is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining me. Also, a happy belated Mother's Day to all that had celebrated yesterday and all who have, whether or not you are a biological mother or not. Thank you very much. I'm sure it's, I hope it was a great day for everybody. And certainly here in the Twin Cities, it certainly was a nice day. It was beautiful out, wasn't it? A couple of things I wanted to say before we got on to our show tonight is that, once again, if you're listening to me on the radio tonight, thank you very much. If you want to see the live streams of the show, you can go to GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun on Facebook. I am also on the Get Haunted page, and starting tonight, I am also streaming on Parallax 1. That's Paralanx 1, and I'm very grateful to be able to start there. So thank you very much to the folks over there to giving me that opportunity. This is going to be a very interesting program tonight because this is one of those famous stories that has come across about Alcatraz. I mean, this is probably, in my opinion, the most famous story about this place, about this escape that happened many, many years ago. And the book that we're going to be talking about tonight is called Alcatraz, The Last Escape. It literally just came out last week. It's available on Amazon. It's available other places as well. You can get the Kindle, you can get the hardback or the physical copy, you can get an audio book of it as well. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this tonight is because this is a different sort of look at not only Alcatraz but everything around it as well. And this is different than anything else you will have read about Alcatraz, and we're going to talk about it here in a bit. I have two gentlemen with me tonight. First is Ken Widner. He's a nephew of escapees John and Clarence Anglin. He grew up hearing stories about his famous uncles from his mother and family. In 2015, he participated in the History Channel documentary Alcatraz: Search for the Truth, in which he shared previously unknown stories and photos. He also became friends with famous mobster James Whitey Bulger, who was incarcerated at Alcatraz at the same time as his uncles. Writing letters to each other for 2 years, Bulger shared intimate details about John and Clarence, the escape, and prison life. Ken also filmed an episode about the Alcatraz escape on the TV show Expedition Unknown, shown on the Discovery Channel in July 2022. He recently signed with the Los Angeles-based production that is currently developing a TV show about the Alcatraz escape. Ken lives in Panama City, Florida, with his wife and West Highland Terrier. And then we have Mike Lynch and his award-winning author, whose historical nonfiction book, Dublin, came out in 2007, followed by 8 novels, including a historical fiction book, After the Cross. In March of 2022, Mike filmed an Alcatraz escape theme episode with Ken on Expedition Unknown, shown on the Discovery Channel. He recently signed with a Los Angeles-based studio that is currently developing, I believe, the same TV show about the Alcatraz escape. Mike lives in San Francisco Bay Area with his wife and cat. Ken and Mike, welcome to GhostBox Radio.
Thank you for having us. Yep.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm struggling to figure out even where to start here. I mean, first of all, there's a couple pieces here. First of all, Alcatraz, which at first I thought let's get into talking about Alcatraz a little bit more. We will, I think. I think the bigger story here, and Ken, why don't you kind of start us off here, is the fact that there are 3 people, 3 inmates that were involved with this escape. And 2 of them are your uncles. How, growing up that way, what was that like as far as the family dynamic?
Well, I can tell you that it was a very interesting family reunion whenever we would go back down to Ruskin, Florida to see my grandparents. And most of the kids, most of my cousins, we were pretty much, not really kind of bring it up. I mean, we were just kids then playing, but all of the adults at some point in time in any gathering that we had, John and Clarence always came up in a conversation. And over the years, it just became more and more that I kind of realized that one of my uncles kind of knew more than what he was actually letting on to be. And later on in life, we most of the family kind of knew who it was, one of the brothers, and we eventually uncover even more information about this particular brother and his involvement in helping setting up the people and the things that allowed the escape to occur.
And so the thing about this is, and I get worried that some of the stuff gets lost to history, because now it's been it's 62 years ago now or something since the escape. Right. The idea of why was it so difficult for any inmate to escape from Alcatraz?
Well, Alcatraz was the federal prison that prisoners. Well, let me back up. Prisoners were never sent to Alcatraz. If you committed some kind of a federal crime, you were never sent there. You were always sent to another federal prison like Atlanta or Lewisburg or other places in the country, San Quentin, places like that. If you were a difficult inmate, you were causing problems, you're trying to escape, then you were sent to Alcatraz. So that was the last stop for the inmates. So that prison was designed specifically for the troublemakers, who are already going to prison. So they were like the worst prisoners in the whole federal system. So, they had reinforced steel bars. They had, concrete floors and walls and ceilings that were very thick, reinforced steel. They had a very low population compared to the other federal prisons. Alcatraz had approximately 260 inmates at any given time. They had a higher ratio of guards to prisoners than other prisons. And then, of course, the biggest detriment for any prisoner trying to escape is the water. The San Francisco Bay water is very cold. You can only be in the water for about 15 or 20 minutes before hyperthermia sets in. And then, of course, you have the tides, which are very strong. They're so strong that even a healthy person cannot outswim the tides. So if you are trying to swim your way to freedom, you're going to get pulled out into the bay or through the bay into the Pacific Ocean, and then that's the end of you. So they had many safeguards designed in the prison that made escaping Alcatraz a really bad idea.
I didn't realize until I was doing a little bit more research that it's also shark infested.
There are sharks in the bay, yes, and they made that abundantly clear to the inmates.
It's pretty incredible. I also doing a little bit of research. I found that there were like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like 3 types of currents that you could, depending on the time of day and when the currents would change coming out of Alcatraz, that one could send you right back to Alcatraz. One could send you out into the ocean, and then one could actually get you to the coast.
And it would also depend on which side of the island that you chose to go into the water. You know, if you went on the side of Angel Island, more than likely you would wind up going up under the Golden Gate Bridge. If you went on the other side of the island, which was closer to the mainland, you had a very good chance of reaching Marina Green, or even in that area. If you were paddling, or if you had some type of help, you had a better chance of making it there before you hit the Golden Gate Bridge.
I find it very interesting too that if it was anybody else, I wouldn't be so sure if they would have been able to survive the escape. But from what I've read and seen about all 3 of them, but in particular, Ken, your uncles, that they took immaculate care of themselves, and they were also geniuses.
Well, and they were excellent swimmers. They grew up in Tampa, very close to Tampa Bay, a mile from the bay. And the Tampa Bay is really a lot like the San Francisco Bay. Even some of the research I've done, in the wintertime, the water can actually be colder than San Francisco. And so, I mean, there's a one in and out, which goes up under what's called the Skyway Bridge. And they were all the time swimming in that water. It was nothing for John or Clarence to swim miles at one time. And so, they were very adept to this escape. I mean, it wasn't something that took them by surprise. I believe they were really kind of built for this escape.
Well, and they had to have done their homework to the best of their ability, right? Because they planned for a lot of eventualities, and the escape itself outside, to get even just outside of Alcatraz, was nothing short of brilliant, quite frankly.
Well, and they relied upon previous escape knowledge, because Clarence had already escaped multiple prisons when he was in Florida. So had John, a couple of them, probably more so Clarence. But they relied upon a lot of their previous knowledge of stuff, some things that they used to do as kids. And so they brought all that knowledge to bear. And then, of course, it didn't help having someone like Frank Morris, who was a very highly intelligent individual himself. And the 3 of those together just constructed, like you said, one of the greatest escape mysteries of all time.
Absolutely. We are talking with Ken Widner Mike Lynch, and we're talking about Alcatraz, The Last Escape. This book just came out in just last week. It's available as paperback, Kindle, audiobook. You can go to Amazon to pick it up. Mike, how did those, I mean, obviously we know how the 2 brothers met, but what about the third one? How did they all kind of come together to decide that they're going to take on this attempt at escape?
Well, John and Clarence Anglin, as Ken said, they were in and out of jails and prisons from their teens to their 20s multiple times. They were small timers, local criminals. They'd break into houses, they break into stores, steal cars, steal car batteries. They grew up very poor. They were farmers. The family had no money to speak of. They lived in a four-bedroom, or not four-bedroom, a 4-room house, kitchen, front room, and then 2 bedrooms. And Ken, his uncles, there were 14 children, all crammed into this little house. There was no electricity, no running water. no telephone, so very primitive. And so for the John and Clarence, they wanted the good life. They wanted money. They wanted respect in the community because they were bullied a lot growing up as kids because they were so poor. And so, as Ken said, they were in and out of prison a lot because of the petty crimes. Well, eventually, at one point, they actually bumped into Frank Morris when Frank Morris was in Florida. He was also a career. Kind of a small-time career criminal in and out of boys' reformatory schools and prisons and jails and so forth. So they already had a previous relationship. So when the three of them met up again at Alcatraz, it wasn't for the first time. There was a previous relationship. And one of the things in prison is that you learn who the people, A, you can trust, and B, have the skills that you're looking for. If you're of escape-minded personality, like I need to get out of here, you want to find those people that have the skills and the character and the abilities to escape with you, that they're going to be an asset to you. They're not going to be a problem. And Morris had those skills, and the brothers recognized those skills in him and vice versa. So when John was the first one to arrive at Alcatraz, actually, I take it back. Morris was the first one to arrive there. And then when John arrived there, he was already planning, even before he got off the boat, he was already thinking about escape. And then when Clarence showed up a few months later, that's when they started putting their plan into effect with there was a fourth member of the team, Alan West, who, because of his ability to go to different parts of the prison, he was kind of like a handyman. He found some files in the utility corridor between the cell blocks. And once he found those files, then the plan really started in earnest of trying to find a way out of the prison.
That's really interesting about that. It's like that one piece, that catalyst. That's like, okay, now we can start doing something with this. So there's a big piece there.
Yes.
Was this a well-kept secret in the prison?
No. Well, it was from the guards.
Right.
But as far as the other inmates, there were a lot of other inmates that knew what was going on. They might not have known the intricate details of the plan, but they did know that something was happening, and they did participate. A lot of them knew about it, and they would play noise or make some type of sound at night to kind of cover up anytime that they were doing work behind the wall or behind their cell. And then the night of the escape, when they made some sound, when they went up to the roof and took the vent off, there was a loud thud. Well, Whitey Bulger wrote in one of the letters that everyone got up and started making noise and shaking their beds and hitting things and trying to distract the guards from wanting to go check out this noise, and gave them the opportunity to get away. So, and Whitey even told me in one letter that it wasn't just John and Clarence escaping and Frank Morris escaping Alcatraz. They all escaped that night. It was something that every one of them was pulling for. And
right.
So they all laid awake in bed that night, waiting for the next morning.
Wow.
Hoping that, that they didn't get caught.
Wow. And it's incredible. Why don't we go ahead and do this? Let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this book. We're going to talk more about why this book is kind of set apart from what you may have read about Alcatraz before. Also, if you have any questions, put them in the comments. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Are you one of thousands of individuals who know you have psychic abilities but don't know how to tap into your higher self? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who offers classes that can help you reach your goals. Refined Divine holds classes Monday and Thursday at her 2 locations and via Zoom. Classes consist of manifestation, learning psychic abilities, shadow work, and healing trauma. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
This is Psychic Medium Deb. You can go to refinedivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh, every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef. So check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville.
Did you know that spiritual awakening is not all love and light? Surprise! Inner demons, ego deaths, and tower moments are on the horizon. But while life might hand you some harsh lessons, we've got the antidote to soothe your weary soul. Why not try a dragon's blood bath? Or schedule a Reiki aura repair? With books, herbs, talismans, candles, and more, we put the Shazam in shadow work. Visit Magus Books at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis or magusbooks.com.
The Tilted Tiki, located in downtown Stillwater, helps you get your tropical tiki vibe on with a large selection of fantastic tasting tiki cocktails served in unique and fun glasses, a menu of delicious food ranging from small bites, craft tacos, sandwiches, and more. Plus, don't forget they have live music Wednesday through Saturday nights. Located in downtown Stillwater, the Tilted Tiki is your tropical relaxation restaurant in Minnesota. Visit thetiltedtiki.com.
Come on out to the Charvinity Psychic and Healing Fair in collaboration with Maria Shaw Minneapolis Convention, May 18th and 19th at the Doubletree by Hilton Minneapolis Airport Hotel, formerly known as the Marriott Airport Hotel. The Charvinity Psychic and Healing Fair features a selection of highly skilled and exceptional local psychic readers, healers, and practitioners, ensuring a wide array of premium services like Reiki, past life regression, and so much more. All practitioners offer something unique to help you. You can pre-book practitioners before going to the event and even possibly win a gift basket by visiting 5 or more practitioners at the fair. Also, if you pre-book and prepay for a 30-minute session, you get a weekend pass for Maria's classes for free, normally a $59 value. And the first 25 people who show up Saturday and Sunday will get a free gift bag. Charvinity Psychic and Healing Fair is May 18th and 19th at the Doubletree by Hilton, Minneapolis Airport, 9 to 5 both days. It's only $10 to get in. Visit charvinityfairs.com for all the details.
And welcome back to GhostBox Radio on AM 950. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining me on this Monday evening. And we are having a fantastic conversation. I have with me tonight Ken Widner and Mike Lynch. They wrote the book Alcatraz, The Last Escape. It just came out, literally just came out last week. You can get the Kindle version, the paperback version, the audiobook version. You can get it all. You can get it over at Amazon or anywhere that you're getting books. And this has been a book that's been a long time in the making, hasn't it?
It really has. I originally started putting this together, I guess, in my head in 2012. 2016, right after the History Channel show, I really kind of dedicated myself writing a screenplay. And I was drawing upon the information that Whitey Bulger had shared with me and some other pieces of information that I had pulled together from other family members. And then eventually in 2018, Mike and myself said, you know what, we're really not going to get the story out any other way other than a book. And so we kind of devoted ourselves, I believe it was like 2019. And from that point on, we really put all of our effort into writing this book. So it was a long time coming, but it's definitely have been well worth it.
Now, Mike, one of the things we talked about prior to going on the air is that people have probably read a lot about Alcatraz. They probably read a lot about this escape, but this book really takes it to somewhere different, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when you say Alcatraz, most people have a general idea of what the story's about. You know, 3 escapees. They probably have seen the Clint Eastwood movie Escape from Alcatraz, and for a lot of people, that's probably their base knowledge of what happened. And the movie is generally accurate. I mean, there's a lot of inaccuracies, a lot of liberties of the truth, but overall, it tells the story about, you know, them figuring out a way out by digging out the back of the cell and using the dummy heads to cover their work when they're on top, kind of doing, you know, getting creating the raft and the raincoats, or with the raincoats and their life vests and so forth. And then eventually making it onto the roof and then, you know, going into the water and paddling into the dark. And that's usually where most shows and documentaries and books end. You know, they say the bodies were never found. You know, did they survive? Did they escape? No one really knows. And so our book takes it, the first half of the book, because of Ken's obvious connection to the story, it tells a lot about John and Clarence Angon. And there was actually a third brother, Alfred, who plays a part into the story. He was not incarcerated at Alcatraz, but he still plays a very important part of the story. So we bring him into, and just what their life was like growing up as farmers in Ruskin, Florida, and just the difficulties they faced because they were poor, which was previously mentioned, and their constant incarcerations, getting in and out of prisons and jails because of just constantly getting into trouble with the law. We go into a lot of what it was like for them growing up. And as Ken mentioned, they had developed skills through the years. Like, for example, the Tampa area is a recreational area. There's a lot of boating in that area to this day. And so what the brothers used to do is when the boats would slow down enough or would stop, they would actually tie ropes to the boats and get towed into the river, into the bay recreationally. And that plays a part into the story of what happened to them. The dummy heads is a very famous aspect of the Alcatraz escape, but that's not the first time they did that. Nope. They had a large family. They had sisters. Well, the sisters used to have the dummy heads, the little styrofoam heads that we probably have seen, that they would have their wigs or whatever stuff on them. And well, the brothers used to use that and put them in their beds at night to get out of the house and go get into some trouble. So they were already doing things like that, or because they were farmers and were very poor, they had to become innovative and learn how to make things out of nothing. They would just take the little bits of this and that, and they would create something out of it. They used to make toys for their brothers and sisters. Well, again, these skills come into play for Alcatraz, or John was actually a pretty good painter. He painted off and on through the years. Well, that becomes a very important skill needed in the escape because they painted the dummy heads. They they made the false grills in the back of the cell to cover the fact that they were digging them out. Well, they had to paint those too to match the paint of the cell. So these things that happen over the years are exactly what they needed for the escape. And then, of course, the second half of the book is what happened to them when they got into the water and where did they go after that? And we go into great detail about that.
Now, a couple things there. I think to myself, because they were able to get the painting right to match like the grill in the prison. They had access to human hair so that they could put it on the dummies' heads, and that the soap and everything else. As far as prisoners at Alcatraz, were they model prisoners where they were able to get a lot more freedom than perhaps they didn't know, or were they? Is it just that they knew a lot of people to get them what they needed?
They pretty much were very quiet prisoners. I remember in one of the letters from Whitey Bulger, he said that they kept to themselves. They kept low key. They didn't draw attention to themselves. And that was key to the escape, is you didn't want to be this person that was always getting in trouble, or the guards were always keeping an eye on you. They pretty much flew under the radar. And they got along with everyone. They were very nice. Like I said, they didn't want to draw the attention to anybody. So they were always applying now, like Mike said, they always had a plan in place. They knew at some point in time they needed to make these dummies look as real as possible. So Clarence takes up cutting hair. He had used to cut hair in his past as a barber. And so he would, applied for the job, got the job, and he's cutting hair and he's collecting it as he's trimming the hair, and he's putting it in the cuffs of his pants or in his pocket, and he's taking it back to his cell. No one really knows about it, John, he takes up painting. He actually turned out, it really kind of shocked me how great of an artist he was. And he painted his girlfriend and her sister, and he used those flesh tone colors that he used on their faces to paint on the dummy heads, and then the rest of the colors he used to paint the grills. So they were always in that planning mode, and they were trying to do it and make it look like they were just a regular ordinary prisoner that was just trying to do their time and get out and not cause any trouble.
It's absolutely incredible. And in one of the programs I saw, they said that there was a lot of after they got into, they left Alcatraz, got into the water, that there were paddles and pieces of raincoat that were found and stuff to give the impression that they had perished, but there's also somebody who believed that that was also by design as well. That any sort of material that was found, they really wanted to, and I don't know if this is true or not, but they wanted to give the impression, they believe they wanted to give the impression that they did die, so that maybe people would stop almost immediately trying to search for them.
And that's exactly what happened. There's an FBI report. Well, when the escape was discovered, the FBI, because they have a field office in San Francisco, was immediately called, of course, and they took over the investigation right after the escape that morning. Warden Blackwell was under the supervision of the FBI. He was coordinating the search, but they were coordinating everything else. Mm-hmm. And so inmates were immediately interrogated, including Alan West, who gave a lot of information. He basically said we were going to go to Angel Island, which is a couple of miles from Alcatraz prison, Alcatraz Island. They didn't go in that direction, but that's what Alan West told them. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, that's
yeah. Well, I can pick it up. You know, there are many interviews that the FBI did with, like Mike said, every single inmate at Alcatraz was interviewed. And one of the interviews that they did with one inmate, he did say where John had told him that they would take their raft and their life vest, and they would cut them up, and they would throw the stuff into the water to make it look like that they had run into a problem.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I was going to say
several, that. Yeah, there were several items that other prisoners relayed to the FBI where John had, indicated that they were going to use some clothes that had been darkened out and blackened out. John even mentioned to one prisoner that there was a possibility that they would use early on that they would use the prison boat as a means of escape. So a lot of these things are recorded down into the FBI report. Now there are, and in this book, one of the things I like about this book more than any other book, most other Alcatraz books, and they're very, very, very good, is that they really kind of just hone in on the history of Alcatraz. Mm-hmm. Whereas this book really goes into looking at, as we said earlier, how John and Clarence got to Alcatraz, who are the people that they interacted with, because they interacted with some very important people along the way on the road to Alcatraz. Mm-hmm. And then once they got to Alcatraz, they had, help in putting this plan together. And then when they got to the water, they also had an outside assistant that was able to ferry them out of the country. But there are so many little key pieces that have never been discussed or talked about. And so when we go into the story in this book, we're going to take you down a road that you're going to meet people that you probably didn't even know existed in this story. Right. And had such a key role into the story. And you're going to almost kind of find out that I've always believed that the FBI has always known what happened to them and has always known where they went. And for some strange reason, which hopefully maybe some people will get out of this book as we wrote it, I believe there's a reason why they didn't want them to be found. So I'll leave that as kind of like a mystery. And if you really want to, if you get the book, I think you'll pick up on what I'm trying to say.
Well, and I mean, this was a case that even got J. Edgar Hoover involvement as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously he's head of FBI, so that's a kind of a no-brainer. But yet at the same time, he's commenting on it as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we include a letter in the book where J. Edgar Hoover is talking about, sort of this is after the escape, and it was his belief that the only way that this could have happened was that there was somebody in the prison that was working with the escapees, part of the plan, that had gotten out of the prison, had been released, and orchestrated certain events to take place that basically got a boat set up for them on the night of the escape, and that relayed that information to the brothers, the three, John, Clarence, and Frank, and at that time, Alan West, and let them know what the plan was. And there is an individual at Alcatraz who checks off all those boxes that had the money, the means, and the desire to do exactly what J. Edgar Hoover had said in this letter. And we identify the person and why he did what he did in the book.
Okay, so and not to try to give too much away, because I'm not going to delve more into that because people need to read the book. But do you think, because Ken, you had mentioned that there might be a reason why the FBI kind of, I don't know if turning a blind eye is the right term for it, but do you think that something was happening that was maybe something that J. Edgar Hoover wasn't aware of, that the FBI was kind of keeping kind of a blind eye to them?
Well, when I say the FBI was taking their time and not pursuing every lead, it wasn't the field agents. It was more of the upper management of the FBI. So I would assume that J. Edgar Hoover was probably privy to most of this stuff. It's just amazing as we dug into this that there were so many leads that were given to the FBI, and they chose to ignore it. I mean, actually, in some aspects you'll read, they actually tried to do away with the information, tried to cover it up. And, you just have to ask yourself, well, I thought this was about catching 3 individuals that just escaped from prison. And why would you not follow some of the best leads you've ever had?
Right.
And, we get down even into, and I know this sounds strange, but we even get down into in 2015 when we presented the photograph of John and Clarence in Brazil in the early 1970s that has been positively identified as John Anglin by multiple people, including the FBI that we hired in the show and several independent companies that have done it. But now the U.S. Marshal is trying to come back and say, well, that's not really them. And they're trying to discredit the photograph rather than use it as a lead. They want to go back and try to now say, well, we're not real sure that's them. So it's almost kind of like, why are you wanting to cover this up rather than pursuing it?
Absolutely. So how about this? I want to get in another break here real fast, but are you okay if we talk a little bit about what might have happened to them? I don't want to ruin the book, but I just want to make sure we got some questions in there in the comments about that as well. And it's very, very, very interesting. And I had some thoughts on it too. Let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to try to find out these 3 escapees from Alcatraz, what happened after they left. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Are you one of thousands of individuals who know you have psychic abilities but don't know how to tap into your higher self? Refined Divine is an extremely gifted psychic medium who offers classes that can help you reach your goals. Refined Divine holds classes Monday and Thursday at her 2 locations and via Zoom. Classes consist of manifestation, learning psychic abilities, shadow work, and healing trauma. Refined Divine has helped thousands, and she can help you.
This is Psychic Medium Deb. You can go to refineddivinepsychic.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville.
Come on out to the Charvinity Psychic and Healing Fair in collaboration with Maria Shaw Minneapolis Convention, May 18th and 19th at the Doubletree by Hilton Minneapolis Airport Hotel, formerly known as the Marriott Airport Hotel. The Charvinity Psychic and Healing Fair features a selection of highly skilled and exceptional local psychic readers, healers, and practitioners, ensuring a wide array of premium services like Reiki, past life regression, and so much more. All practitioners offer something unique to help you. You can pre-book practitioners before going to the event and even possibly win a gift basket by visiting 5 or more practitioners at the fair. Also, if you pre-book and prepay for a 30-minute session, you get a weekend pass for Maria's classes for free, normally a $59 value. And the first 25 people who show up Saturday and Sunday will get a free gift bag. Charvinity Psychic and Healing Fair is May 18th and 19th at the Doubletree by Hilton, Minneapolis Airport, 9 to 5 both days. It's only $10 to get in. Visit charvinityfairs.com for all the details.
Did you know that spiritual awakening is not all love and light? Surprise! Inner demons, ego deaths, and tower moments are on the horizon. But while life might hand you some harsh lessons, we've got the antidote to soothe your weary soul. Why not try a dragon's blood bath? Or schedule a Reiki aura repair? With books, herbs, talismans, candles, and more, we put the Shazam in shadow work. Visit Magus Books at 1848 Central Avenue Northeast in Minneapolis or magusbooks.com.
The Tilted Tiki, located in downtown Stillwater, helps you get your tropical tiki vibe on with a large selection of fantastic tasting tiki cocktails served in unique and fun glasses, a menu of delicious food ranging from small bites, craft tacos, sandwiches, and more. Plus, don't forget they have live music Wednesday through Saturday nights. Located in downtown Stillwater, the Tilted Tiki is your tropical relaxation restaurant in Minnesota. Visit thetiltedtiki.com.
And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We're going to have on author Benjamin Zeller. He has written a book a long time ago about Heaven's Gate, America's UFO religion. I've wanted to talk about this for a while, so I invited Benjamin on to talk about kind of the intricacies of what this was all about. You know, one of the things that I kind of realized is that we certainly know how it ends, but what was Heaven's Gate and what led to what ended up happening, as they call the exit, as they all were expecting to be lifted onto a comet that was coming around the Earth back in 1997. It's a very fascinating story. So definitely, please join me tomorrow for that. I have with me, though, right now, I have Ken Widner and Mike Lynch. They wrote the book, Alcatraz, The Last Escape. This is really quite the fascinating conversation. It's been really enjoyable listening to all this. And, you know, the one question, Ken, I was going to ask, you answered right away when I was going to ask the question, do you think that they survived? Obviously, you believe that they did.
Well, I don't believe it. I can prove it.
Yeah.
I mean, the photograph that we produced in the 2015 History Channel show, it was originally the U.S. We didn't do it now. The U.S. Marshal took the photograph, and he, at that time, took it to the leading facial recognition person that actually works for the United States Marshal Services. And he makes the famous quote in the show after he positively identified John England. He said, you know, saddle up the posse. You know, you need to go get them. And then, you know, over the several years after that, we've had multiple companies that came to us and said, would you mind if we, you know, did a modeling of this photo and do a 3D rendering? We had one company do a 3D rendering of it. Every single one of them came back with a positive match. And then in 2022, when we did the show with Josh Gates, they hired the leading AI company that looks at facial recognition. And this software that they use, the federal government actually uses it right now. And they came back with a 99.7% match that's John England in that photo. So to me, that pretty much ends the discussion right there, whether or not they made it or not. I mean, it's them. Now it's just, well, how did they get to Brazil is the question.
Absolutely. No, do you think Frank Morris made it? And the reason why I asked, because I remember in some of my research, my limited research, by the way, that people had thought that they had seen a body floating some little time later, and some were led to believe that might have been Frank Morris. And I'm just curious if you think that all three of them made it to Brazil.
Yes, I believe all three did. And the reason why I say that is because when Mike and myself were in Brazil, one of the reasons I say that is that there were local people that remember three American men who came to this town where they eventually purchased their farm and lived out their life, married and had children. There were three Americans that showed up there. And then the individual who was one of their best friends that they grew up with that actually participated in the escape. He's the one who flew them from San Francisco down to Mexico and then eventually into Brazil. When he was down there, and he came back in 1992 and was meeting with the England family, he made this comment. One of the sisters asked him, what happened to Frank Morris? Was there, and he said, well, I know there was a third American man down there. I was never introduced to him. They don't go by names. And he was with an American woman, blonde. And so he did identify pretty much that was Frank Morris. So, and even Whitey Bulger told me that all three of them went into Brazil, but he kind of indicated to me that he thought maybe Frank Morris went back into Mexico at some point in time and didn't stay with them. I don't know if he did and when he did, but I don't believe he stayed there with them the whole time.
Now, did because I seem to recall that a possible idea, someone waiting for them if they got to land after escaping was one of their girlfriends or something. Was it just them that made it into Brazil? They took no one else with them?
When they escaped that night, they only had to go halfway into the bay. They had a boat that was waiting for them. It was set up by another friend, another individual, which you'll learn about in the book.
Mm-hmm.
This individual, and there were people there, believe it or not, there's an actual eyewitness to this boat that is a credible eyewitness, a San Francisco police officer, by the way, who witnesses this boat that night. And so the boat ferries them not too far from after they go up under the Golden Gate Bridge, ferries them not too far down the shoreline to a waiting airfield where Fred Breezy, who is their best friend, loads them onto a plane and flies them into Mexico, where they were previously going to be waiting and working at a farm that was run by the person who helped them get out and financed everything. And circumstances happened to their third brother, other brother, as Mike mentioned, Alfred. He was killed in prison for the knowledge of where they were at. They mistakenly sent him something to let him know, hey, we're okay, we made it. Well, he inadvertently tells my mom and my dad and me and my sister when we're visiting him in Kilby Prison, he's killed like a week later.
Oh, wow.
For the knowledge of his brothers. And that really is the last escape. That's what the book is referencing when it says Alcatraz, the last escape. It wasn't Alcatraz that was their last escape. It was actually escaping out of Mexico into Brazil.
Wow. Incredible. Now, it's one of the things I watched. It was around, I think, 2014, 2015. They were in their early to mid 80s. That would have thought at the time. So now they would have been into early 90s or something. Is it believed that they have that they're all gone now?
Well, I will say none of the England brothers, none of my uncles ever lived past their mid 80s. My grandfather is the only one who lived into his 90s. He was 92 when he died. I know Clarence was a very heavy smoker. You can even see cigarettes in his pocket in the last photo we have of him in Brazil. And so the chances of him still being alive is probably very slim. Mm-hmm. John, maybe, but my gut feeling is that both of them are dead by now.
Wow. Now, in the comments, Emily says South America is a typical relocation spot for CIA, FBI. Again, they did it for Project Paperclip too. And I also add, of course, also all of those Nazi war criminals who have found their way down there. I mean, it just seems like a place where a lot of rules kind of get ignored, or a lot of, you could do payoffs and stuff like that. And did they end up in Rio de Janeiro, or did they, where roughly, do you know where they ended up?
Go ahead, Mike.
They were near the Sao Paulo area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that happened go back to Alcatraz, when they were with Whitey Bulger helped them in many different ways with the escape. He was never part of the breakout team, but he did assist because of the skills and information that he had to help the four get out of Alcatraz. And one of the things that he did was this mysterious individual we keep referencing, who was a very important person, not only in the story, but also very well-known individual to people because of his activities, we'll say. He had the ability to leave Alcatraz. There was a federal case going on. He bonded out to appeal his case. And when he did, Whitey told this person that when you get out, go to Brazil, get married, have children, because if you do, then the United States could not extradite you back into the country. And so eventually he does return to Alcatraz, and he helps the brothers with the escape, which Whitey was astounded that he allowed himself to get sent back and not escape like he would have done. And that's exactly what the brothers did. Eventually they landed in Brazil, and they married and had children, because if they were ever found, they would not be extradited.
Right.
Wow.
And what's amazing is when we did this show with Josh Gates, we not only found the town that they originally landed in, but we found people that even remembered them being there. And so, and when we went to the place that they originally, because you got to think about when you first show up into a foreign country. I mean, it's not like and this is the 1960s, you're not this little small town. I mean, it was so small when we went there. Did it even have a red light? I mean, so you can think back 60 years in the past,
no traffic.
60 years, it was probably even, more remote. And so, they're hiding out in this little town, and the local sheriff is actually supplying them supplies. I mean, when they left Alcatraz, they walked away with like $25,000 each at that time. That was what was given to them. The person that supplied this boat and also supplied the means for them to get out of the country actually had cash for them. And in fact, this is documented with the person that helped them get out. He even says, when they made it to the shore, they had clothes, they had an ID, and they had cash. And out of the country they went.
We talked about this prior to the start of the program, but, I'm going to say it again, is that with all the work and the organization that they had done to get this escape going and be successful, I can't help but wanting them to be successful. You know what I mean? Yes. It just the work is like, if you're going to put that much work in, and if you're going to risk your life, if you're just like, anything is better than being in here, and I'm gonna face it, I'm gonna do my best. If I don't make it, I don't make it. I mean, there's something about that. It's kind of like, yeah, I'd like to see you succeed. If you're going to put all that into it, it wasn't half-assed by any means.
Well, there was another element to consider why they would escape. I mean, yes, they did have a habit of escaping prisons, and we don't have time to go into all the details, but they were also convicted on the state level for a bank robbery that eventually landed them at Alcatraz.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the trial that they had when they were for the state trial. The prosecuting attorney told the brothers that when you finish your federal time, which was Alcatraz, and you go back to the state to do your state time for the same crime, and they tried to appeal the double jeopardy element of that, but they were not successful. So the prosecutor basically threatened them that says that when you do state, you're not getting out alive. And that was a threat that they took very seriously. And then the same thing happened to Frank Morris. His activities were more around the Louisiana area, and he had escaped from a prison there. And Whitey Bulger talks about in one of his letters that Morris he said, I'm not escaping Alcatraz. I'm escaping going back to Louisiana, because he knew he was going to be killed had he gone back to Louisiana. It was this is Southern justice in the 1950s and 60s.
This is truly survival.
So they knew that when they were sent back, they were not going to make it. So that gave them extra motivation to break out of Alcatraz.
Right. Yeah. I to me as a relative, I pulled for them on this escape, not just because I'm related to them, but it's because of the injustice that was done to them. I mean, my grandfather and my grandmother never condoned any of their criminal activity that they got involved in. They did believe that they should have served time. I mean, they were, as Mike said, they went up against the federal time. They were charged and they were given 10 and 15 years for the armed robbery, and they were willing to go away and do their time. It was when the state of Alabama came in and said, "Oh no, that's not good enough." They really wanted to put them to death. They had the death penalty for bank robbery, and they tried to execute them.
All right, I got to cut you off there. We're running out of time. We're going to be back tomorrow. Thank you, Mike and Ken. This is fascinating. Go get the book, Alcatraz: The Last Escape. It's available now. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Have a good night.
You too. Right. Bye.